Alrighty, everybody, it is currently Friday, October 31st, 2025, and I'm coming at you live from your daddy's left testicle. Alright, I'm chilling up in there, talking to the other sperms, the one you beat out in the race. I'm talking to those guys. They said you're a fucking loser. Alright, not me saying this, I'm just the messenger. So don't get mad at me. It was the other sperms who said you were a loser. Alright. And this week is or has been tiring, I would say. I would say anyone in the Midwest it knows what I'm talking about because almost the entirety of this week, I'd say like 6 out of the 7 days. I just bit rate on the highway, but 6 out of the 7 days of this week have been just the grayest ever that you could possibly imagine. Cold, but not so cold that you feel like tough walking through it. You know what I mean? When it's like 20 degrees outside and you're just wearing like two hoodies and jeans and you're just fucking trudging through the snow, like that'll make you feel tough. But this was the type of cold that just makes you feel miserable. You know, it's just beating down on you like a fucking like a man on a stephead or a redheaded stepchild. That's what this cold was doing, just like permeating into your body, and it was raining too, and so it was just getting all up in there, making you tired as hell. No goddamn vitamin D to give you any energy or a functioning brain at all, because you could not see the sun. I swear to God, for at least 6 of the last 7 days, I have not been able to see the sun, just at all. Hasn't been there. It's there today. It's there today, but it's a fall sun. You know what I mean? When it's fall and there's not a cloud in the sky and the sun is just you're getting like the worst of both worlds where it's like it's cold, it's chilly, but the sun is still just like making you squint and it's you can tell you're just becoming dry as shit, just full on raisin maxing and fucking prune pilled, turning into a mummy or whatever. But which that does bring me to, I don't know, probably the only interesting thing I did this week, which I watched the movie The Substance. I don't know if you guys have seen that movie or not, but it's horrifying, but it's not scary, if that makes sense. This movie is not. I watched it and I wasn't scared. And to be fair, usually when I watch a horror movie, I'll do a little girl scream here or there, but I'm not too scared when I'm watching a horror movie. I really only get scared at night time, dude. When I'm tucked in my bed and I don't have mommy and daddy there to fucking check under the mattress to see if there's any ghouls or goblins or, in the case of The Substance, hot chicks. Hot chicks hiding underneath there. Um, I do get scared just every time. It doesn't matter how not scary the movie is. It could be the fucking Paw Patrol Halloween special, and I'm still gonna go to bed being like, I'm just not gonna piss tonight. I don't care how bad I have to piss. I'm just gonna hold it until morning. It just, just every single night. And like I said, when I watched The Substance, it was no exception, zero exception at all. It's it was like I was doing tactical rolls out of my bed. When I had to go to the bathroom, I'd like hit like a fucking Navy SEAL roll out of my bed and like instantly turn my phone flashlight on. And I'm not afraid to admit it, dude. I'm not always scared of the dark, but when I'm scared of the dark, it's a serious fear, you know. And like I said, The Substance wasn't even, it's not like a jump scare horror movie. Like it really is a horror movie. I wouldn't say it's like scary. I don't know. When I was watching it, honestly, I was laughing most of the time. But then, later on when you're alone with your thoughts, it's just like, God, that's the most, just the creature, I guess, in that movie, and just like the not even the atmosphere of it, just the creature of it is just so horrifying um to look at, right? Like I said, there's not really any jump scares or anything throughout the whole movie, but just like the fucking thing, dude. I don't know. It scared the fuck out of me. But to be fair, like I said, most things scare the fuck out of me, dude. Most things instantly give me PTSD, dude. That's how I know I can never be like a soldier or in a war or anything like that. Like, yeah, it's fun to think about it being like, dude, I could totally fucking be a Navy SEAL and kill people and shit. No, dude. The second a loud noise would happen, I would instantly go into like a catatonic state of just like staring straight ahead, dude. I would have been one of those dudes in World War II when they didn't like understand like PTSD or really any mental illness. I would have been one of those dudes that they were like smacking, being like, "He's hysteric. He's lost his mind. He's turning into a woman." Like that's what I would be if I was in a war. And yeah, that's just who I would be. Like the substance really is not that scary at all. It's probably one of the funniest movies I've seen in a minute. Just everything about it is so because it's ridiculous, right? That's the thing about it. And that's kind of the truth about like most horror movies and even just like movies in general now. I feel like um it's been like it's become so hard to like keep people's attention for 2 minutes, let alone 2 hours. So just everything has to be to like the nth degree. It just has to be the most insane fucking um whatever it is. You know, in this case, like body horror. It has to be like the most insane fucking body horror you've ever seen in your life. Or I watched the movie Land of Bad, which I didn't originally want to watch it because that name is just, it's so ridiculous. Like, I feel like they chose that name, The Land of Bad, to like appeal to like foreign countries and shit, right? So they could appeal to like China or whatever, and they would just be like, Land of Bad, you know, it's like a direct translation and shit. But I watched that movie and I watched it because I heard people being like, it's not that bad. And so I watched it, and it's not good exactly, but it is like The Substance in the sense that it just, everything is the most over the top, ridiculous. It's like a military movie, right? It's about like a special forces group going in to rescue a guy, and just like the whole situation gets fucked up. And that's what the movie's about. But just everything about it is so fucking insane. It's literally just completely like nonsensical. It doesn't make any sense. It's just Liam Hemsworth, 6'4", jacked, hot as fuck, walking around, you know, all sweaty and shit. That's like 90% of what the movie The Land of Bad is. And um you know, kind of parallels with The Substance a little bit, where The Substance is definitely a way better movie. It's actually a pretty good movie. Yeah, I know, shocking. The movie that won a bunch of fucking awards is actually a pretty decent movie. But yeah, it's just so over the top, everything about it. And I get that that's the point. I get like it's kind of like with Apocalypse Now, where just Colonel Kurtz is just so insanely over the top, and just all the chaos is taken to like the nth degree. I get that the point is that it's supposed to be kind of over the top, but in this particular case, uh, in the case of The Substance, not in the case of Apocalypse Now, in the case of The Substance, it's just so over the top that it becomes funny at a certain point. That it becomes pretty fucking hilarious and just ridiculous. And the message of the movie is, I don't want to spoil the movie, but the message is basically, I don't know exactly how to put it, but it's it's about how people will like destroy themselves to try to make themselves superficially better, right? And obviously the most obvious comparison with this movie is like the plastic surgery thing, but I think it could like apply to other things as well. But that's what the movie's about. Um but like when you actually watch the movie, when you actually watch it, the message that I got was like, this bitch is a psychotic moron. Right? This bitch is a psychopath. And on top of that, she's a fucking idiot as well. She's a psychopath and an idiot. And it's like, so the message got kind of lost to me. And once again, I understand that it's just supposed to be people will do anything, you know, especially like women actresses in Hollywood and shit like that. They'll do anything to like look young and, you know, be able to get parts and all that stuff. I understand that that's the point of the movie, but it was just so fucking insane. It was just so crazy to me that I was like, I mean, you know, I guess I get the message of the movie. Um and there probably is shit similar to that going on, like the whole adrenochrome thing. I'm not like one of I'm not like a crazy conspiracist, but or conspiracy theorist, but I definitely um believe in that shit. Like the whole adrenochrome, people fucking, you know, uh like sucking the juice out of babies. And not like rabbis do. Rabbis suck the juice out of babies a different way. If you don't know, when a Jewish baby is born, when a little Jewlet is born, the rabbi cuts off the tip of the dick, or I guess the foreskin, but that's part of the dick. So he cuts off part of the dick, and then he sucks all the blood out of it. Adrenochrome is a little bit more like um, fetuses and stuff like unborn babies and stuff like that. I don't know. They have like some. I don't know if it's related to stem cells, but it's something like that. And then people will like inject that into themselves uh, to make them appear younger or like slow down aging and shit like that. So I mean, the substance. It's not like the most hyperbolic thing that you could imagine, but it's pretty far, right? Because one of the things is, so you take the substance. This isn't really a spoiler. There really is no spoilers for this movie. It's all right. Sorry, I did not know my boy was at his house right now. He's feeling a little sleepy, dude. I'm gonna call him Joe, and he can hear everything I'm saying right now. So I'm just gonna talk as much shit as humanly possible. His toilet is always full of shit. It's always full of turds. Um, his this cat, dude. This cat, gotta kill it. We're gonna have to kill this thing sooner or later. Just put it right the fuck down. Kill it. But no, I was talking about the movie, The Substance. I don't remember what point I was trying to make. It's just a ridiculous movie. We got to look at the upside of it. A lot of titties in this movie. I'm talking not not always the best titties. Spoiler alert, you're going to see some real saggers. You're going to see some real like an Irish Catholic woman with a family of 12. Like that's some of the type of tittage we're dealing with in this particular film. So, but, but I mean some amazing tits as well. It's Margaret Qualley. She was in fucking what's that called? The Nice Guys or whatever with Ryan Gosling and Russell Crowe and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. She was in both of those, and we get a whole lot of tit from her in this movie. Which I mean, she's got a pair. She's got a pair on her. Not not an A+ pair, but I'd say A for sure. She definitely has a 4.0 in the tit category. Same with the ass. The ass is it's nice. It's acceptable. You're gonna see a whole lot of it. It just if you watch this movie, it's not a movie you want to watch with your family for a few reasons, but I'd say number one reason we're dealing with a lot of nudity and a whole lot of sexual shit, which that just makes me more uncomfortable than anything when it comes to like watching something like with my family or like with my family around. I'm just like, no, we're not, we're not, we're not doing this. We can watch fucking Hamburger Hill together, and I won't blink an eye until like that one scene, happens where like the Vietnamese hooker is like, "You want to fuck me? You suck me, fuck me a long time." Uh, until that scene comes up in Hamburger Hill, I'm not flinching. You know what I mean? It's Don Cheadle with his guts hanging out, screaming for his mom, and I'm watching, and I'm just chilling watching that with my family. But the sex shit, yeah, just never. You never want to be in that situation where you're watching a movie, and some people be like, "Well, that's just because you're not comfortable with your family," and it's like, yeah, yeah, no, I'm not. I'm not comfortable being sexual around my family. I don't know. Call me crazy. There's so much shit like that where people are like, just whatever it is. They'll just come up with whatever excuse. And I guess like an example of it is like uh, with like India, just a lot of the weird like traditions and shit that they have, or whatever it is, whatever country it is, they'll be like, "Well, you just don't understand their culture, all right, or you just can't like accept the fact that that's just part of their culture and that's just what they're gonna do." And it's like, yeah, no, I'm not. I'm not. I'm not gonna accept the fact that bathing in cow shit is a part of someone else's culture. I'm not gonna understand that. I'm not gonna accept that. I'm never gonna be in a position where that is something that is just a part of my existence, where the acceptance of that and the understanding of that is a part of my existence. And I don't care. People will be like, well, it's a long held tradition and it's going to be hard to convince them not to do it or whatever. And it's like, well, then I don't, I don't know what to tell you. Keep them there. keep, keep them in India or whatever. Like that's my feeling about a lot of that stuff, right? Where whatever it is, right? Where it's like, I know in the UK, there's a big thing with just every single immigrant that they bring in from the third world, where it's just like, they don't understand the dynamics between men and women in this country. And it's just like, well, then they can't be here. That's just part of it, right? We can't, this isn't something we can work around, dude. This isn't something that we just got to be like, give them a class or whatever. That's not going to convince them, right? I don't know, I just feel that way about so much shit. Like, and that's like one of the left's big things that I just hate about them, where they're just like, you have to accept that this is what people are gonna do, and I'm like, no, no, I'm not gonna accept the fact that people are gonna like do whatever they want, no matter how immoral or disgusting it really is. I'm never gonna be able to accept that fact. I don't know, and I think that's why um like the young people just aren't dealing with the left anymore. It's just being like, no, I don't want to have to accept every negative thing about someone. I can still like, I can still acknowledge someone's like personhood, right? Humanity. I can still acknowledge and accept that, and also be like, but I don't want to be around that motherfucker, right? That's like what prison is. Prison is like, you're a person, you deserve to live. We can't just kill you, right? You're not a dog. We can't just kill you because you attack somebody or whatever. But we don't want to be around you. Um, and that's, I guess that's not the best explanation of this to the left, because they don't really believe in prisons either. Dude, this goddamn cat. I'm about to fucking mollywop this fool. Swing him around like a fucking a soap in a sock, dude. Hit him right against the wall. Um, it's creepy as hell. This cat fucking around, putting his paws under the door and shit, might be creepier than the movie The Substance. It might be creepier than that. Um, but yeah, I don't know what I was trying to talk about. I'm very brain dead right now. Just like the general like lack of dopamine. When you get too much dopamine in your brain from like watching brain rot TikToks or whatever, from doing whatever it is that you do, smoking weed all the time. When you get like dopamine fried from that, or like gooning, whatever it is, that's bad. But I think also having like no dopamine in your brain at all is also very bad. Right. And that's just what I've been getting without the sun. You know, I just haven't been, just like not seeing the sun. And I talked about this before, but it just fries your brain. Literally, I don't know how people survive. And it's like, I can almost kind of get like, if you're living in like some Arctic conditions and you just don't see the sun, that that almost fits that environment, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? It's cold, so you kind of expect it to be dark outside. But when it's like 50 degrees outside and you just don't see the sun, or 60 or whatever it is, and you just don't see the sun, your brain doesn't put those two things together, because it's like, well, it's not that cold, so I should be seeing the sun a little bit, but it's just the clouds are blocking it out and it's completely fucking gray outside. So, and that's why the British are as fucked up as they are, and other people have said this, but just I think they forget the fact that there's many other groups of people who don't see the sun, who aren't as fucked up as the British. But the British are fucked up because they never see the sun, but it's also never that cold outside, right? And so I feel like it fucks with like your biochemistry or whatever, just not seeing the sun, but it also being like 60 degrees outside, you know? And just being surrounded by like also grayness, because like I'm sure like the Amazon rainforest is probably like usually pretty gray outside, just because it's a rainforest, it's constantly raining there. um so there's gonna be clouds and shit, so they're probably not gonna be seeing the sun that much, but the people who live there are surrounded by like this beautiful green lushness that's like full of life and all that stuff. But the UK has been so industrialized and like agriculturalized, I don't know if that's a word, but they don't have like forests and shit over there, like at all. It's all the forests were cut down in like the Neolithic age, so like 8,000 years ago, they cut down all the trees so that the sheep could graze, right? And so they don't have any trees in Britain. There's no like natural life, like spring, there's no, you know, there's no like beautiful fucking forests that, yeah, maybe it's rainy all the time, but there's this beautiful like pine forest over here that's filled with like the chirping of birds and all that stuff. They don't have that over there. So it's literally just gray is coming from the sky, but then also gray surrounds you on all sides, and it's like 60 degrees outside. So you should be like chilling. You should be like, oh, well, it's 60 degrees outside. That's nice. But then you go outside and it's just gray everywhere constantly. The food is gray. The people are gray. Like British people aren't even white. People will be like, oh, the Brits are white or whatever. They're not even white. They're gray. They have like a sickly complexion about them. And it explains everything about them. It explains why they wanted to conquer the entire world so badly. It explains now why they've kind of, resigned themselves uh to this just nihilistic, pessimistic, gray hole um of life that they live in. It just explains everything about them. And people, this is something that I like learned in an anthropology class. But she was like, environments don't dictate culture, or whatever. She said something like that, right? And obviously, she has a degree in anthropology and all that stuff. But this lady was, I mean, no offense to her, she was a college professor, if you know what I mean. She was a full on college professor, and not like some old tenured guy who doesn't give a fuck. She was a young female college professor. So yeah, I think that explains why she was like, the environment doesn't dictate culture. It 100% does. I think it's like the main thing that dictates culture, right? And that's not to say that every culture that's in like a particular environment, whether it's like desert or mountains or whatever, it's not, I'm not saying that every single one of those cultures is going to be the same, but they're going to develop in a certain way that's probably pretty similar, right? That's probably like pretty similar to each other. They might not come to like the same conclusion necessarily, but there's gonna be, like a desert, for example, a culture that like develops in a desert, like a real fucking, like nothing's around their desert. I'm not talking about, you know like the Levant region or whatever, where it's like dry but there's tons of waterways and stuff like that. I'm talking about a real dead ass desert. There's gonna be like certain things that happen to this culture as they progress, uh, or as they just like move forward through time, that make them, act a certain way and do things a certain way. And I don't know. I find the denial of that weird. I don't. It's just weird to me. So it's like, no, the people. It's not. It's almost like if a culture is a shitty culture, and there are people that'll be like, no culture is shitty. Yes, some of them are. Some cultures are just shitty. Most of them are. Basically, everyone except for like America and Mexico, they're all shitty. Um, so it's like, if I don't know how to explain this, but it's basically by saying that environment doesn't affect culture, you're like, the only thing that affects culture is people. And so if a culture is shitty, then that means that the people are shitty. Right? Like that's what it kind of feels like to me when you're denying the fact that environment dictates, culture and the way society works and all that shit. So yeah, I think and it's not just environment, right? Sometimes people are just shitty. I don't know. There's just no explanation for it. People are just like generally shitty sometimes. But yeah, and people just don't want to accept that fact. I don't know why. I don't know why they don't want to accept the fact that sometimes people are shitty. Or they'll only accept it for like a select group of people, right? Um, I guess another comparison that you could come up with, that once again coming from the left, is where they'll kind of be they'll be like they'll be like I'm just gonna say it. They'll be like, black people are criminals because they grew up in a super shitty environment or whatever, and it's not their fault. and you can't blame them for that and stuff. And I would tend to agree with them on that. But then they'll turn around and they'll be like, white people are racist, and that's just because they're evil people. And it's like, if you're gonna extend that olive branch to one group of being like, I know it's not your fault. I know you just grew up in this environment and you're not, necessarily inherently a bad person. You just grew up in this environment that made you, do bad things, right? And have beliefs that lead you to do bad things. You got to be consistent about that stuff, right? So, yeah, just like every time I hear like a person on the left being like, well, you just don't understand the environment they grew up in, blah, blah, blah. And once again, I agree with all that stuff. But you also, if you apply it to that group, you have to apply it to every other group. And that's why it's not wrong that I'm a rapist. All right. That's why it's not wrong that I commit the act, the crime, the sin of rape. It's just the environment that I grew up in. All right. The environment that I grew up in dictated the fact that I am now a pedophile. And so you can't put me in jail for stuff for that and stuff, right, dude? You have to rehabilitate me. You have to let me out on the street and rehabilitate me. But there is people that like genuinely believe that. They're like, no, we can't put these people in jail because we need to like rehabilitate them instead of punishing them. And it's like, I don't know, dude. I just feel like we've tried the whole rehabilitation thing, or like cities and like states around America have tried the whole rehabilitation thing, or just like pure rehabilitation as opposed to something that's a little bit more like rehabilitation and punishment at the same time. Some states have tried like just pure rehabilitation, no jail, all that shit, and it's not working out great for them, right? So if I have to choose between just locking them in a concrete box or letting them out on the street and let them do whatever they want, I'm gonna lock them in the concrete box, dude. Fear is a powerful motivator. It's one of the most, maybe the most powerful motivator. The fear of death for most people. It's like if you want someone to do something, be like, do it or I'm gonna kill you. Right? And I'm not saying we should like do that when a kid steals a candy bar from a store or whatever, but you should have that a little bit in there where it's like, if you don't, hey, I get it, dude. 16-year-old babes, I get it. You like lurking around the high school or whatever, but if you don't stop doing that, I'm gonna kill you, right? And you show him a gun and all that stuff, and I'm Liam Neeson, bitch. I will hunt you down and I will kill you. I think if you just and you went through on the threat, you don't have to always go through on the threat every single time, right? It's like when your parents are like, fuck it, I'll give you something to cry about. They're not going to go through on that threat every single time. They're going to go through on it like once or twice, like the first couple of times they say that shit to you, right? And so I think that's what we need to do. We need to like set a precedent. We can't, come out of the gate and be like, stop being a pedophile or I'm going to kill you, and have people, just completely believe that. We're going to have to kill a few pedos. And people will be like, well, what about the, people who are falsely convicted and stuff like that? And so I was like, dude, I don't know, like, that's just what's going to happen. A few innocent people are going to die, you know, but then after that, there's not going to be a whole lot of fear left, and we can't, or there's not going to be a whole lot of that type of activity left. And the thing about doing this is we can't have like a judge and a jury, debating it and shit like that, right? Because obviously, if people are like, well, this person's going to get killed if we convict them of this, then they're going to be less likely to convict them of this. We got to do just old fashioned kangaroo court, is this guy a pedophile? If the answer is not an immediate no, right, we're presuming guilt. That's what I think we got to do in this situation. Whereas the legal system in America, it's predicated on the presumption of innocence, right? And so for this shit, I think we got to uh, assume guilt, or yeah, the fact that they're guilty. All right, so it's like, unless, dude, you got some security footage of you buying an ice latte at 7-Eleven, you're gonna get killed, dude. We're just gonna kill you, and we gotta do it. We gotta do it in a way that's brutal looking, but maybe not necessarily super inhumane. Because, like I said, we're gonna get a few innocents in there. This isn't just gonna be the people who did it. We're gonna get a few innocents in there, and so we got to make sure it's a nice gruesome death, but it's not um like a brutal one. And so what I'm thinking is we bring back the guillotine, dude. Guillotine, because what I'm thinking about here, we're maximizing gruesomeness. So I think one of the biggest ways you can do that is by maximizing blood. And if you chop someone's head off, I don't know if you guys are familiar with anatomy, but that's like the main blood goes through your neck area. And so I think that's what we got to do. We got to maximize blood while minimizing the the uh the pain and suffering of the person that we're killing. And we also can't and we can incorporate other things into this, right? Like what's that guy's name? The BTK killer, buy and torture kill guy. Shout out Kansas, although he's from Wichita, which I don't really consider Kansas. I just consider that kind of a shitty extension of Oklahoma, but whatever. That dude, he's still alive. I didn't fucking know that, dude. Dennis Rader, look it up. The guy's still alive, and he's like 80 years old. And he's probably a pretty spry 80-year-old. I feel like those psychopaths, they don't get like dementia like that. So he's probably pretty, maybe not as peak as he could be, but I feel like he's probably in pretty decent shape right now. And so I think what we got to do is we got to have those guys doing the executions, right? Because it's like that's not a guy that you rehabilitate. A dude that like ties people up and kills them. Yeah, we're just never gonna have that guy out on the street again. And so we have that guy be the executioner. Let him have a little fun, dude. It's like he did his job this week, right? He mopped the floors or whatever. He cleaned the dishes. He did that job. Now you get to kill someone. Now he's not gonna get to kill him in the way that he wants to, but he's still gonna get to kill a person, and he's probably gonna be hyped about that stuff, you know. And we also like let him jack off to the pictures of the people that he executed. Look, I'm just trying to fucking make the best out of a shitty situation. Okay, I'm just trying to make the best out of it. So executions, should they be public? Whew, that's gonna be a tough one. That is going to be a tough one. I'm gonna go no. I'm gonna go no on the public executions because then people are just gonna be like, they're just going to start executing people themselves, and then we're just going to have an even bigger problem to deal with. So, and what we should do is we should have like a scared straight program, right? I think that's what we should do for like the audience of the executions, where we bring in a dude who's like, she was 17 when he fucked her, right? So it's not fully a crime yet, but he was like 35, she was 17, and she wasn't like a freshman in college type 17, and even if she was, I don't know how much better that makes it, you know. But we can't get him on that exactly, we can't put him in the guillotine, but we'll have a big old group of those guys, and I got to imagine there's probably thousands of these dudes in this country. There's probably I'm guessing probably close to 1 million of those dudes in this country. And we sit them down, in the auditorium or whatever. They're like, is this going to be like an anti-bullying presentation where a guy rips a phone book in half? No, dude. We wheel the pedophile out on like a cart or something like that, already like strapped up in the guillotine position. And then Dennis Rader is just like, Dennis Rader is also on the cart. And he's just like sitting there like twitching, like, oh, let me do it. I want to kill this guy. And then we kill that pedophile in front of all the other like potential full-on pedophiles. And I think that's the system that we have to work with. We got to do scared straight, but it can't just be people yelling at him, right? It's got to be full on. This guy's just lost his head. I think that's the necessary thing to do in this situation. And if you don't, then you're also a pedophile. And that's the best thing about being like we should kill pedophiles, right? Or like just anything to do with it, right? Like those videos of those guys beating the shit out of pedophiles, doing like WWE moves on him, hitting a fucking a retarded guy who thought he was texting a 13-year-old with a Batista bomb. Like those guys, you can't say shit to them, right? It's almost like the Antifa thing that I talked about, or I don't know if I talked about it last week, but like the whole Antifa thing is like if you go against whatever Antifa's doing, they're gonna be like, well, we're Antifa, we're the anti-fascists, so if you disagree with what we're doing, then you yourself are a fascist. And that's the move that like these pedophile hunters are able to pull, right? It's kind of a similar thing, except they've actually got a point. You know, the Antifa people are like going into a PetSmart and stealing a bunch of dog toys or whatever and being like, we're fighting fascism. And it's like that's not, you're just ensuring that a business is gonna get shut down. You're not fighting fascism. But if you criticize them for doing that, then they'll be like, well, we were fighting fascism, and if you disagree with us, fighting fascism, then you're a fascist. But like the pedophile hunter guys, they're actually just like beating the shit out of pedophile. They're like texting these dudes being like, I'm 13 years old. Do you want to eat my ass or whatever? And then the dudes are like, yeah. And then they get their ass beat. So they're actually verifiably beating the shit out of pedophiles. So that's like the difference, is that one group is actually doing the thing that they say they're doing, and the other group may or may not be doing it. I don't really know. And I don't really know what their definition of fascism is either. And I don't think anyone has the same definition of fascism. I feel like if you asked 100 different people what fascism is, they'd all give you a completely different answer. And so, yeah, Antifa. I think if Antifa, really what they need to do is they need to rebrand themselves. And I think what they need to do rebrand themselves is they need to start being the pedophile hunters. They need to be like, pedophilia is the ultimate like embodiment of fascism, and it kind of is if you think about it, right? It's this great big powerful figure imposing its will and making a smaller weaker figure do something. So if you think about it, pedophiles are fascists, okay? And so what we got to do is get that message out to Antifa. Be like, yo, pedophiles are fascists. Tell them about that shit. Have them, do the whole, what's that? Dads Against Pedophiles. Have them do that whole thing where they like throw pumpkins at the pedophiles or whatever, and then people, especially the right, will start to switch up on Antifa, because the right, and this is the right just has, politically at least, just has it really down when it comes to like populism. You know what I mean? Like they're the party that hates the pedophiles. Now, in actuality, are they the party that hates the pedophiles? No, dude. No. We have not seen a word of the Epstein files. None of them are working to release it at all. They they actively back Israel, which is a country that like does not that's like a safe haven for pedophiles, specifically Jewish ones. Um, and so no, they're not actually the party of like anti-pedophilia or whatever, but they just have like that's their thing, right? Is that like they hate pedophiles. Whereas the left's thing is like they love oppressed people, which is like that's how you get the oppressed people on your side, but a few of those oppressed people are going to be like, "No, I don't fuck with this shit." Whereas being like I just hate pedophiles, you're gonna get more people on your side by saying that, right? If that makes sense. You're gonna have like, I mean, probably a good 95% of the country is gonna be like, hell yeah, that dude hates pedophiles. I also hate pedophiles. I'm gonna vote for him. You know? And that's like a good playbook to run, where you just say like the best thing imaginable. And that's how like socialism and communism get so popular, where it's just like they just say the thing that everyone wants to hear. They're just like, everyone's going to be able to live for free. You're not really going to have to work, although you should work, but you don't have to if you don't want to, and everyone's going to get everything for free. Right? And that's how like socialism and communism gets like a grasp on people, where they're like, dude, everything for fucking free. Let's go. This shit rules hard as fuck. And then like the Republicans did with the whole Epstein thing, they're going to do the opposite of that. They not only are you not going to get anything for free, you're going to have to work 10 times harder for everything that you're going to get, dude. And I saw this point made recently where one of the big things about communism is like seizing the means of production, right? That's one of their big things, is seizing the means of production, right? The government seizes it. They take it, or I guess the people, but that doesn't really work in practice. So it ends up being the government seizing the means of production. But like one of the most, actually the key point, you know what I mean, the cornerstone of the means of production is the people, right? The people are the ones who are in the factories, making the fucking sneakers or whatever it is, So the people are part of the means of production, and so therefore you're getting seized too, bitch. You're getting repoed. It's like if the repo man came over and he also took you with him. Like that's kind of what communism is, where it's like, nope, I'm taking you with me, dude. You got a surgery on you. I'm not just taking your car. I'm taking you because you got a titanium thing in your leg. You're getting repoed, dude. So that's kind of what communism is, but it makes sense, dude. It's just people hearing what they want to hear, or they just want to hear that everything is going to be okay. Like if that's you could literally become the president of the United States by going up on stage and like taking like a relaxed, like nice Bob Ross, Mr. Rogers voice and just being like everything's going to be okay. And then you just instantly get elected. Eh, I don't know how well that would work actually, because people really love like chaos and violence and stuff like that. They love the idea that like everything's going to be not okay, and actually it's going to be really tough and everything sucks. And I guess the reason they like hearing that is just because their life sucks. That their life sucks, and so therefore hearing someone say or like backing that up or whatever, uh it appeals to them, and so they're also hearing what they want to hear. And I think that's like the kind of the difference between the right and left, where the right is kind of like, I don't know how true this is exactly, but the right is the one where it's like not everything's going to be okay. Or I guess it's like communism versus not communism, right? Where the communists are like everything is going to be okay. Daddy's home. He's going to change your dye and wipe your little tushy, and he's going to take care of you. Um, and so yeah, I don't know what point I was trying to make there. Like I said, my dopamine is fried in the opposite way. Usually it's fried because I'm gooning and watching TikTok for fucking 18 hours a day. But today or recently, it's been fried in the opposite way, where it's just like, nah, what happened? Who is it? What's going on here? So, yeah, that's why I'm talking like a moron. And I'm also talking like a moron because I am one. All right. We're going to get into the news here. I don't even have to say it. So, this is the news for this week. So, 25 states sue Trump administration over SNAP food stamp freeze during shutdown, dude. People are not getting their EBT. And I swear to God, they've changed EBT like 20 fucking times. At first, it was food stamps. Then it was EBT. Now it's SNAP. And this is just like what the American government does, where it's like we're not actually going to change the substance of what we're doing, right? We're not gonna approach this issue in any different way at all. We're just gonna change the name of it, right? It's like the Democratic Republic of the Congo, where they're not democratic or really a republic. They just call themselves that, and so people are like, oh, "Well, no, it's a democratic republic. It's not EBT. It's not food stamps. It's SNAP. It's a supplementary what is it? Supplemental nutrition action program, some shit like that, right? They're like, no, it's not food stamps. People aren't just like buying whatever they want with this. It's SNAP. They're only buying food, which you can't call the majority of stuff in America food. So Washington, this is the article, and it's from CBS News. So I guess take it with a grain of salt or whatever. So a coalition of officials from half of the states and the District of Columbia sued the Trump administration on Tuesday over the suspension of food stamp benefits amid the ongoing government shutdown as millions of Americans brace for a disruption in federal food aid in the coming days, dude. Yeah. And once again, it's just I don't get how anyone's like, no, you shouldn't be getting food for free. Like I don't know. It it's like, dude, we live in America, right? Best country on earth. And if everyone in America isn't like fed, then that looks bad on us, dude. And it is also bad. So it looks bad, and in actuality, it is also bad. Everyone in this country should be well fed. Everyone in this country should be like healthy and stuff like that. And I'm not saying it's like the government's job to do all that, but no, it actually is. But it's not necessarily the government's job to like directly do that. if that makes sense. It's maybe not necessarily the government's job to directly give these people money for food, and it's not necessarily the government's job to directly dictate what people can and cannot eat. But it is the government's job to create a system where everyone can eat and everyone does have a house and everyone, does have the ability to become healthy. And people are going to say, well, they do. They do have, and it's like, but it's not, it should be, it's like being like, well, someone from South Sudan can become a millionaire if they just worked really hard. And it's like, okay, but the dude lives in fucking South Sudan. Like, I get it. There's going to be some exceptional person somewhere along the line that's able to, fight in spite of all they've been given and all of, like, the shit that they've been given. But it should be, you shouldn't have to, you shouldn't have to work 70 hours a week or 60 hours a week to get a one-bedroom apartment and food for yourself. You shouldn't have to do that in America. We should, the government and the people should create a system where that is not necessary. Maybe not directly, I am paying for your food, but we should all be participating in a system where everyone can get their food, everyone can get their house and all that shit, while also not working 60 hours a week. I don't know. I just feel like that's reasonable. And it's also just like kind of what the country is, right? Like the country isn't, or like the basis of it isn't like everyone's going to come here and the government's just going to give them everything. No, the government is going to be there to provide a system that can, that will give you the opportunity to do all that stuff. And in a reasonable situation, right? That's kind of what the government is supposed to do in America. The government isn't supposed to be giving free shit to everybody. It's supposed to be creating a system where everybody can get the shit they need without, while also being able to live a life. And so, but we're not at that point yet. We're not at the point yet where that's a that's a reasonable reality. We're not there, and so we're gonna have to give people free shit. Sorry, is the way it is. I don't know what else to tell you. We're not at the point where it's like the system is good, and so people are able to get everything they need while working 40 hours a week. We're just not there yet, and so we're gonna have to give people free shit. We're gonna have to give them, Section 8 housing and food stamps and all that stuff until, these fucking politicians can stop being, quite frankly, insanely corrupt and actually work for the people instead of for the companies that give them millions and millions of dollars every year. But let's read a little bit more about this lawsuit. So the states, which include California, obviously, New York, obviously, Pennsylvania, little less obvious, are asking a federal judge in Massachusetts to order the Department of Agriculture to provide benefits through the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program for November, including by tapping into a contingency fund to ensure the assistance continues to flow to more than 25 million people living within their borders. And see, that's where I go. That's where I get a little bit. I go over to the right a little bit, where I'm like, yeah, I should be feeding Americans, but I shouldn't be feeding, people who just like overstayed their visas and refuse to leave. I shouldn't be feeding those people. I should be feeding Americans, people who were born here, or people who like gain their citizenship. That's who I should be feeding, or people who are here, like legally and on like a permanent. They're gonna be staying here. That's who we should be feeding. We shouldn't be feeding, whoever the fuck, whoever's hungry, And I get America, Statue of Liberty, Ellis Island, give me your huddled masses, buddy. We ain't set up for the huddled masses anymore, okay? And quite frankly, when we were getting the huddled masses, we weren't set up for it then either. Like, those people were living in slums in New York City. So I just, yeah, we look, we can barely take care of these own huddle masses that we got here. We can't be taking in your huddle masses. We are still number one, but we got to kind of lock in a little bit. So they argue that the administration's decision to cut off food stamp payments, which are provided to roughly 42 million people nationwide, is unlawful and threatens to deprive millions of Americans of essential food benefits that help protect against food insecurity and hunger. I don't, once again, My whole opinion on this is you get your bag of rice, you get your pemmican, and that's your food. I think that's what we should be giving these people. Um, but yeah, I don't know. There should be an incentive to get off food stamps. There's really not an incentive to get off food stamps now. That is true. That is a true thing about this system that's not working well in a number of ways. And part of the reason it's not working super well is there's just no incentive to get off food stamps. It's like even if you get a higher paying job, fuck it, I'm not gonna like if I'm already on food stamps and I'm getting a higher paying job, I'm gonna be like, I'm just gonna keep doing this shit until they figure out about it. That's what I would do. That's personally what I would do because it's like, okay, now I'm just getting free food and I also have this super fucking high paying job. I'm just not gonna get off food stamps because I can get all the food I want anyway. And so that is one of like the things about food stamps that like the Republicans do have that 100% right, or people on the right have that 100% correct, where it's like, why the fuck would I stop? What reason is there for me to stop? It's not like if I stop, my fucking taxes are going to go down or whatever, or that anyone else's taxes are going to go down. And that's the other thing is people are like, oh, we need to stop giving these people food stamps so our taxes can go down. You seriously think, you seriously want to look me in the eyes and tell me that you legitimately think your taxes are going to go down ever? They're not gonna. Your taxes are never gonna go down. The government wants money. That's all they want out of you. So your taxes are never ever going to go down unless someone does something about it. Unless Luigi gets out and he decides to pop a few caps. Unless that happens, dude, your taxes aren't going down. Whether or not you know we cut SNAP benefits or we even cut like I'm for cutting aid to Israel, but your taxes aren't going to go down if that happens. It's just the truth of the situation. So, all right, but let's read a little bit more about this. So, shutting off SNAP benefits will cause deterioration of public health and well-being, state officials wrote in their lawsuit. Ultimately, the states will bear costs associated with many of these harms. The loss of SNAP benefits leads to food insecurity, hunger, and malnutrition, which are associated with numerous negative health outcomes in children, such as poor concentration, decreased cognitive function, fatigue, depression, and behavioral problems. Yeah, being hungry makes you fucking act a fool. Makes you fucking act a fool. So the states involved in the suit are Arizona, California, Colorado, Connecticut, Delaware, Hawaii, Illinois, Kansas, Kentucky, Maine, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, Minnesota, Nevada, New Jersey, New Mexico, New York, North Carolina, Oregon, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, Vermont, Washington, and Wisconsin. Honestly, most of these make sense besides like Kansas and Kentucky. Yeah, I guess Kentucky, you probably got a lot of fucking people with food stamps there. That place, God, are they not in a good way at all? But yeah, 25 states and DC are trying to get them to do it, and they're not gonna end the government shutdown until they get what they want. All right, Trump's not gonna end the government shutdown until he gets exactly what he wants. So yeah, gotta figure out a new fucking healthcare system. You know, gotta figure out how to get that insulin, how to get that cholesterol pills, all that shit. Is what it is. It fucking sucks. He's not a good president. Neither would Kamala. I know this is the point that everyone says it. She wouldn't. She doesn't give a fuck about you either. That bitch does not care about you at all, dude. She was actively putting people in jail for crimes she herself committed. She does not give a fuck about you, dude. And she can't even pretend to. At least Trump can like pretend to care about the issues of the common man and all that stuff. Kamala couldn't even try to give a shit about that stuff. Um, and next up is an article from BBC. Get ready to have a little bit of BBC in your life. So, several hundred feared dead as Tanzania election protests continue. Hundreds of people have been killed in Tanzania during 3 days of protests following Wednesday's general election, the country's main opposition party has said. A Kadima party spokesman told the AFP news agency that around 700 people had died in clashes with security forces. A nationwide internet shutdown is making it difficult to verify reports of death. And this is kind of crazy to me coming out of goddamn Tanzania, dude. because Tanzania, I do think they have a little bit of Boko Haram, which Boko Haram is like kind of the African offshoot of Al Qaeda. They're the ones, if you've heard about the Christian genocide in Nigeria, they're the main ones doing that shit over there. And so I do think there's a little bit. I do know at one point there was some Al Qaeda stuff in Tanzania. Um, but yeah, I'm just kind of surprised that because it's almost like a Costa Rica or something like that. Like that's what Tanzania feels like to me a little bit, where it's like, yeah, is it kind of this third world country for sure, but it also has like this booming like tourism industry. I've heard like the beaches in Tanzania are crazy, but like the main thing is like safaris and like big game hunts and all that stuff. But I guess Tanzania is way fucking bigger than Costa Rica, so they can't exactly, predicate their whole economy um on tourism and all that stuff, but still. I imagine it to be a little bit more of a fuck. My brain isn't working. More of like a Costa Rica, something like that. It's shitty for sure. The people are like Jamaica, right? The people there 100% live in abject poverty, but it's not necessarily like violent, and the government isn't necessarily super oppressive because there's just all this money flowing in from tourism. But I guess that's not the case. I guess that's not the truth about Tanzania. But let's read a little bit more about this. So, the BBC has spoken to a diplomatic source in Tanzania who said there was credible evidence that at least 500 people had died. Demonstrations have been taking place in major cities with young protesters denouncing the vote as unfair as key opposition figures were barred from running against President Samia Suluhu Hassan. Yeah, dude, people with like the last name Hassan or, Ali or whatever it is, they're not the biggest fans of democracy. They're not. They just don't gel with it. I don't know. The Muzzies, they just do not like democracy at all. You know? And they're not shy about it either. So, in this you're thinking Muslim kind of a dictatorship. This is a lady dictator that we're dealing with here. So she's probably even more brutal than the other dictators. So protests have continued on Friday in the main city of Dar es Salaam in the neighborhoods of Salasala, Yombo, Tajida as and Tajida as demonstrators defied warnings from the country's army chief to end the unrest. Some people went to the streets on October 29th and committed criminal acts. These are criminals and the criminal acts should be stopped immediately. General Jacob John Makunda said on state TV on Thursday, adding that the army had controlled the situation. God damn it, dude. You gotta love just like African, like straightforward shit like that. These are criminals, and they are acting like criminals, and so we must kill them all. You gotta respect their straightforward shit like that, and I love them for it. And they also just the way a lot of Africans talk, it's so formal, it's so beautiful. I love it, dude. You must end this pain and this mercy on me. I don't know. So the government has sought to play down the scale of the violence, and the authorities had extended a curfew in a bid to quell the unrest. It has been difficult for journalists and human rights groups to check the reports of deaths because of the internet shutdown. Hospitals in the country have been refusing to give out information when asked about casualties. A source at one referral hospital in Dar es Salaam told the BBC it had been overwhelmed with casualties since Thursday. The source added that they had heard this was also the case for other public hospitals. Okay, well, Tanzania's fucked up too. Everyone's getting it, dude. That's what happens when America goes down. Everyone wants to act like America isn't the center of the world. Dude, we are. The maps are all centered around us. Fucking, we're number one. When we go down, everyone else goes down too. So, yeah, sucks for Tanzania, but it kind of sucked in Tanzania for about a couple hundred years now, so nothing new for those guys. They just went from like the Germans oppressing them to the British, and now it's their own people. So, sucks for them. We wish them well. We wish the Tanzanians well. All right, that's all I've got for this episode, guys. I'm going to record another episode right after this, but I hope you have a good day, a good week, a good year, a good life. Fucking, I hope you get your SNAP benefits. Fuck it, spend that money. And I'll see you guys in the next episode. Peace.